lyrics are great too, right? God will make us one church. Ooh, there is freeing and freedom in that phrase. That we don't have to keep figuring it out all the time for ourselves, right? God will do it. God provides what we need. The Spirit of God is there empowering us and to unite us. It's freeing because we are the ones sometimes that think we have to figure all of this out. We're so fragmented and broken into factions and sides and parties and religions. We carry so much baggage. Where we've come from, how we grew up, what we were taught about ourselves, what's expected of us, and how we've been judged, and how we've been treated and mistreated. Add to that what we've learned early on about God, whether we are accepted unconditionally by God or accepted by God based on a set of rules and behaviors. And all of that stuff tends to weigh us down. It stops us from stepping into the life that God has for us. It's like we have to feel our way through a thick fog or listen like we have cotton over our ears. Our own ideas of what we think are truths can muddle the real voice of truth itself. Such was the case for Gideon. Gideon had picked up his own share of baggage by the time we meet him. He was hiding underground in an old wine press, thrashing wheat. He was frustrated by the things that he knew to be true, and he doubted the things that he dared hope were true. He knew what was expected of him. He knew what his parents expected. He knew what his religious community expected. He knew what God expected. There was a box that Gideon had been placed in at birth, and he lived within it. And he attempted challenging the limits of that box would have been futile in his mind. He knew his place, lowest of the low. He was weak, he was fearful, and he was powerless. Truths. So when the angel of God, who turns out to be Yahweh God, appears in his hiding place and calls him mighty brave hero and tells him God is with him, Gideon responds in a way that anyone who has been denied freedom would respond. Me? Right. Are you kidding? If there's a God at all, that God is not here. Look at us. Look at me. Where's the God of wonders my parents talk about? Not here. Definitely not with me. And I'm not sure how long Gideon went on like that, confessing his doubts and wondering why and pouring out his deepest hurts. God listens without judgment, without head shaking. Just listens, and all the while moving a little bit closer to Gideon. And when he runs out of hurts to express, Yahweh God puts a hand on Gideon's breast. And as Gideon's face lifts to meet the eyes of love, God simply whispers, "You are strong. Use the strength that lies within you. I have chosen you." Now, I'd like to think that touch, right, that personal face-to-face encounter, the gaze of truth, the affirmation of gifts, that would be enough for me to jump right into action. Yes, Lord, I believe. But I suspect many of us would be more like Gideon. And instead of affirming his call, he affirms everything he knows to be true about himself and his life. The things that have been drilled into him over and over since birth. I'm the lowest of the low. I'm the lowest of the low. I'm the lowest of the low. I know who I am, and I ain't no hero. I'm not brave or mighty or anything. I am who I am expected to be. I don't make waves. I stay silent. I stay hidden. I keep my head down, and I try not to shame my family. This is me. Get it? I get it. I believe anybody who has ever been treated less than would get it. Anyone who has ever been forced to live inside an identity that did not define them. Anyone who ever been told that they shouldn't or can't do anything outside the lines. Anyone who has ever felt the stigma of wearing a label or known the fear of certain rejection if the rules are broken. Get it. Except God doesn't see what Gideon sees. God sees Gideon for who he is, not for who he's been told he is. God sees mighty and brave and strong because God put it there. God sees the hero who will not only free himself, he will free the oppressors and defeat the oppressors and free a whole people. And so to a fearful and reluctant and doubtful hero, God says words that change everything. I'll be with you. My goodness, how our lives would change if we just believed those 4 words from God. I'll be with you. Because that's the real fear, isn't it? That we should dare, if we should dare to do something different or something that will cause others' chins to wag, that should we live into who God has created us to be and allow ourselves to embrace our full identity, that God won't be with us. This is coming out Sunday. How many people had to or are still hiding in the closet who have been told that being gay or lesbian or bisexual or genderqueer or trans or all of the other non-straight, cisgendered acronyms which people identify, how many have been told that should they come out, should embrace their full identity, that they would end up without God, live in sin against God, be an abomination to God, a disappointment to everyone. How many in this room had to struggle with doubt and fear and wondering if God would love them even when? Wondering if they could be ever called a child of God. If. And we know where this comes from, right? As the movement of Christianity became an institution, the rules for membership and exclusion grew, and the door once open to all narrowed, allowing only those who fit certain criteria or behavior or belief system in. Those on the margins, who Jesus so aptly brought in, were once again cast out. And sin was defined by behaviors that church leaders decided didn't fit with their agenda. And though the LGBTQIA population were not the only ones excluded, people of color felt this, indigenous people feel it, women, mental illness patients, people who struggle with mental illness, people who struggle with physical disabilities, victim of poverty, divorce, you name it. I'm not limiting, but I am saying the LGBTQIA population has faced some of the severest persecution. I'm sorry. On behalf of the church, sorry. No one has the right, no one has the authority to tell you that God will ever abandon you, or that you will ever be without the Spirit of God. God promises to be with us no matter what. Promises to never leave us and never forsake us no matter what. The Spirit of God is within you no matter what. That is unchangeable. That's truth. That is unshakable and undeniable. You are loved exactly as you are. Now, though I'm sure Gideon wanted to believe that, He's also carrying all that baggage, remember? He knew what he knew, what he knew. So he asks for a sign, legitimately, right? I need proof. I'm risking everything here. And Gideon, truly, if we did a series on this guy, you would see that this is his MO. He is not taking one step without crystal clear assurance that God is with him. And this first one, well, this is a pretty simple sign he asked for. He just asks to make sure he's not delusional. He's asking God to make sure that he's not dreaming. Because a God like this, well, you know what happens if it seems too good to be true, right? So he points a finger at the Almighty and says, if this is really true, if you are really God, then stay put. I'm going to go and get you a present. And God responds, I'll be here when you get back. And God was. Can we pause for 1 second? Can we just pray and thank God for all the times that we told God to just wait? Just stay right there. And we run off and we do whatever we think God expects us to do, or what other people have told us to do, or what we think we should be doing, or anything else we think is more important than just sitting and being with God. Can we stop and thank God for being there when we got back? And just as we would be when we found God still where we left them, Gideon is reassured, and the offering is made, and God gives Gideon his first assignment, but Gideon, legitimately, still afraid of what people will think, takes that first step into his full identity at night in the dark. Now, before we're quick to judge Gideon at this point for still being afraid, even after getting that sign, I don't have to tell you how scary it is to let out the things that you've held inside for so long, nor the risk in doing so. But that step, that first step, even in the dark, opens a window in Gideon's spirit, and a cool breeze rushes in through his soul. It's what happens every time we take a step away from the denial of who we think we are in God and take a step toward becoming our authentic selves. It feels right. It feels life-giving. So yeah, while he was afraid, probably yes. I mean, the village, in his defense, right? The village came to his house afterward, demanded his father hand him over so they could kill him for what he did. And this is a great end to this portion of the story. Gideon's dad stands up for him. Gideon's dad protects him as he should. And perhaps for many here today, that's where the story starts to fall apart. Maybe taking that first step, you faced rejection from your family instead of defense, or ridicule, or physical abuse, or worse. You may have been rejected by your community and your community of faith. As a white, cisgendered, straight female, I have never encountered that kind of pain. I can't change that. But what I can offer on behalf of myself and the members of this church is welcome and acceptance and love in this place. In this place, there are parents and siblings and friends who all come together to defend and support and nurture, and who will stand up for you. Will you never be hurt again? I can't promise you that. But I know that there are people here who you can trust, who will stand by you and hold your hand and lift your spirit and pray for you and pray with you and walk with you on this journey to becoming everything God has designed you to be. No matter where you are today, know this. all of us are on some type of journey to be our authentic selves in one way, shape, or form. All of us desire to see ourselves as God sees us, to free ourselves and to stop the oppression of others, to not be defined by what and who we've been told we are, but to know the strength within us, to use the gifts that God has put within us, and finally be able to say, we are who God says we are. A child of God, really. May God bless and keep you this morning.